should be all set.
Excellent, thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's call with L&I Secretary Jerry Oleksiak and UC Benefits Policy Director Susan Dickinson. I'm Teresa Elliott, Deputy Communications Director for L&I. Please submit your questions by clicking the chat icon, which is the blue thought bubble at the bottom of your screen. Please include your name and media outlet, followed by your question. In the interest of time, you'll be limited to one question, but time permitting, we'll open up the call for a second round. You may submit any follow-up questions to us at dlipress@pa.gov, and we will address them after the call. For your awareness, this call is being recorded. If you do not consent to being recorded, please hang up now. Following the call, a link to the recording will be provided to the media outlets that participated. We'll get started with comments from Secretary Jerry Oleksiak. Secretary?
Thank you, Teresa, and thank you to members of the media that have joined us. I'll start as I do with the most recent numbers. Since March 15th, we've paid more than $30.6 billion. So we've gone over the $30 billion mark in benefits paid. $12 billion of that is from our regular unemployment compensation system. $14.5 billion is from the federal pandemic unemployment compensation program. That's the extra $600 per week, which has now ended, and we can talk more about that. $4 billion from the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. That's for those traditionally not eligible. $182 million with an M from the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation Program. That's the federal extended benefits program. And $9.5 million from Pennsylvania's extended benefits program. Thus far, 93% of eligible claimants who filed for unemployment compensation between March 15th and June 27th were either paid or were determined to not be eligible for benefits. The remaining 7% are claims that the automated system couldn't approve for various reasons, and they are under review by staff. Every week when I provide those updates on the amount of benefits paid, I always say that while we're proud of getting this money into the pockets of the people who need it during this pandemic, we will not be truly satisfied until every person who is eligible is made whole. And I want to talk about the word eligible for just a moment. We regularly receive requests from many of you on behalf of individuals who applied previously but have not yet received the money they believe they are owed. Because claimants are confidential under the law, we will respect that, and we will never be able to provide you with specific details about a claim or a claimant, including whether or not someone is eligible or ineligible. In these situations, individuals may be eligible but have issues with the claims they submitted that require our UC staff to review on an individual case-by-case basis. Those claims may have common mistakes made by claimants, like transposing their first and last names or providing incorrect Social Security numbers or addresses. They may involve more complicated wage or work history issues like out-of-state wages or military wages. They all require human intervention to review and correct. These type of issues took time to resolve even before record numbers of COVID-19 related claims. The other situation involves individuals who are not eligible but believe they are. There could be several reasons for this, including some confusion over the difference between being financially eligible for unemployment compensation versus approved for payments. Instructions claimants to receive to file their continued claims while waiting for their final determination. And we encourage this so that claim weeks are filed and ready to pay if and when a claim application is ultimately approved. Or the belief that because they are not working during the pandemic, they automatically qualify for unemployment compensation, which is not always the case. All of these reasons and more could be leading people to mistakenly believe they are approved for unemployment benefit payments. We've actually determined that there are 19 possible paths an unemployment claim application can take before being approved or denied. And Susan will provide just a few short examples of those during her remarks. Ultimately, even though we're in an unprecedented pandemic situation and want to help everyone as quickly as possible, we are still bound by the unemployment compensation laws here in Pennsylvania for regular unemployment compensation or by federal guidelines for the CARES Act programs. And that means that not everyone will be eligible. Let me talk about most recent numbers for our unemployment compensation customer service. Our staff has worked more than 216,000 total overtime hours since March 15th. We have almost doubled, or more than doubled, our UC Service Center staffing levels, and we've been improving on our phone calls and emails. Thus far, since March 15th, about 645,000 emails have been answered, about 290,000 phone calls, about 118,000 live chats, and over 255,000 calls answered by our virtual assistant. So we know that people are continuing to have difficulty getting through, but we want you to understand as well that we have responded to that many phone calls and emails. We continue, as you know, to battle the PUA fraud. We continue to make improvements to our system. We're working closely with state and federal partners. We're continuing to see instances of fraud involving the PUA program. And again, this is something that there are a lot of red flags that we look for, and this is going on around the country, not just in Pennsylvania. For workers, if you receive a confirmation letter or other correspondence from the unemployment office about an unemployment claim you didn't file, that's a red flag for you. If you receive a check, a direct deposit, or U.S. Bank Reliant card, debit card with unemployment funds for which you did not apply, that's a red flag. And for employers, if you are receiving claims information regarding any of your workers who are not unemployed, that is a red flag for you. Many people are doing the right thing and returning those fraudulent benefits, and we appreciate that. And we would encourage everyone to visit uc.pa.gov/fraud to learn more about this and to get further instructions on returning payments. One of the things I mentioned earlier is that the federal pandemic unemployment compensation program ended. That was the program that provided $600 in extra unemployment benefits to regular recipients and PUA recipients. We want to ensure anyone still waiting on payment for claim weeks from April 4th through July 25th that you will receive those payments if you are eligible. We began reminding Pennsylvanians in June that this would end, that the FPUC would end in July, and we regularly provided a list of other state resources that would be available to individuals, and those resources are certainly available now. We would encourage you to visit the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services page at www.compass.state.pa.us to apply for benefits including Medicaid, the CHIP program, Children's Health Insurance, SNAP, the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, LIHEAP, the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, and TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. And there are also some programs that DHS runs that are specific to the CARES Act and providing relief from COVID-19. Also, the Pennsylvania Insurance Department, www.insurance.pa.gov, has helpful information, and the state website, www.pa.gov, has a list of resources for Pennsylvanians that include mental health resources, financial help, mortgage and rent information, and more. I'm sure you've heard that there's a lot of discussion going on in Washington. The members of the House and Senate, both parties, they both have plans, but those plans are radically different. We are, like everyone else, we are watching and waiting, and we are hopeful that those benefits will be extended. We are hopeful, particularly, that they will be extended in a way that makes sure that it's a flat rate. If there's any changes in a means test is added, that will require some significant changes to our technology and could delay our getting that system going. So we're watching that very carefully, and we hope that we get some good news from Washington on that soon. You also are aware, I believe we talked about last week, that our Career League offices are beginning to open virtually across the state. Whether you want to learn new job skills, find a better job, or are looking for work, you can contact the career links at PA Career Link, one word, pacareerlink.pa.gov, to learn more about adult education classes, career counseling, resume assistance, and its services for employers as well. We also have we're doing our virtual town halls. We've done, I think, 8 or 9 of them so far. We will be doing one more on Thursday. That'll be our 10th on Thursday at 1 o'clock. So we encourage people to become a part of that. You can watch it live stream at access.live/PA-labor or listen only by calling 833-380-0719. With that said, I'll turn it over to Susan for questions, and then for comments, and then we will begin to take your questions. Susan?
Thank you. I'm just going to expand a little bit on what the Secretary was saying about claims taking 19 different possible paths. That's actually just applicable to new claims. So if you look beyond brand new claims and look at ongoing claims, there's even more ways that eligibility has to be reviewed sometimes. So some of the examples of the different paths that a claim can take when they first come in is, for starters, they may not have their identity verified, and we may have to do extra work verifying their identity against Social Security records to make sure that it is the person that they say they are. There's the possibility of federal wages being part of their work history and their base year. And in that case, we have to reach out to the federal agency and get those wages from the federal agency. Same with out of state. If there's out of state wages, we have to reach out to the other state and wait for that state to respond and send us the person's wages so we can use them on the claim. If there's a question, if there's military wages and there's military service in the base year, what we have to do is we have to get a copy of the discharge papers from that person, their DD-214, and we have to make sure it's the correct version of the DD-214, and then we can add their wages. Then when you're looking beyond wages, there's other things that you have to consider. When a brand new claim comes in, we ask a lot of questions on our initial application about various things that are in our unemployment compensation law. So for example, we ask if someone has severance pay, and then we also ask, if you do, is it over $21,900? So if it is, then it could be an issue that we have to adjudicate, and we have to reduce benefits based on the amount if the employer contributed to it. Or I'm sorry, if their work was directly attributable to the amount that they got. And the pension, same with pensions. If they're receiving a pension, if the employer contributed to the pension in some way, shape, or form, then we have to potentially do a reduction of the person's weekly benefit amount based on how much they're getting in the pension and how much was contributed. So there's a lot of different parts of the unemployment law that we have to apply before we can start making payments to a person when they indicate that one of these things applies to them. And, you know, as you can imagine, we get a lot of false positives as well. Individuals may not understand what we're asking, or they may not, you know, be at the right thresholds. For example, with the severance pay, we may have someone say yes, but then it turns out that the amount is below what we care about for the unemployment law. So there is a lot of work that goes into them, not just the claims that have those issues, but the ones where those issues were indicated, or, you know, sometimes with the wage issues I was mentioning, federal wages, military wages, et cetera, if the person doesn't indicate that up front and their claim goes through, it's likely that their weekly benefit amount is going to be zero, or it's going to be less than what they were expecting. Then they have to get a hold of us and say, well, I did have federal wages, and then we have to start the process from the beginning there. So there's a lot of different ways a claim can go in the beginning based on the application, and that's what takes some extra processing time. So you know, once a claim is set up, there's other things that can occur, but those are the main things when a claim is first created. I'm also going to add a little bit of information about the PUA program, and you know, we've been handling a lot of the emails coming in and helping individuals, and we've had increased staff on the phone for PUA. So you know, we're getting more of those inquiries handled. One thing that we are noticing is that individuals aren't realizing that they don't need a PIN to file on the PUA program. It's unlike regular unemployment compensation in that respect. And it's also unlike regular unemployment compensation because there is no interactive voice response where you can file your claims every week. It's either you do it online or you have to call the staff to file your weekly claims. So there is no IVR and there is no PIN that goes along with filing your weeks. If you're filing online, it's simply a login, just like a login to any other website. So there's no special PIN that goes along with it. So individuals who are filing on PUA just need to log into their dashboard, and there's a link there that says file your weekly claims, and you can file your weekly claims. For individuals who don't have online access, they can call the PUA line from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. weekdays, and they can get an individual who can assist them with filing their weekly claim through there. And I guess that is all for now. We will turn it over to the questions and answers.
Thanks for that information, Susan, and we will move on to our Q&A portion of today's call. Again, if you have any additional questions, please submit them using the blue chat icon at the bottom of your screen. Please make sure to include your name as well as your media outlet with your question. Harry Harrison from NBC 10 asks, what should PUA claimants do when they go to certify for 2 weeks and they get a message stating that they've been working full-time when they haven't?
I'm not sure that that particular message doesn't sound familiar. Perhaps it's an issue on the dashboard. There's a section on the PUA dashboard which will display to a person any issues that exist on the claim. And an issue would be a reason that a payment is held up. So if they had specified as they were filing their weekly claims that they had worked, or let's say they reported earnings for work that they did, that could be what they're seeing. After you work for a week full-time, then the following week, we have to consider that as a reopen of your claim. Because of course, if you work full-time, then you're working and your claim is considered done at that point. So the following week, if you're unemployed, even partially, and you're claiming benefits, we have to know, why is it you're unemployed now, even though you were employed last week? It's a separation question, just like when they're opening their original claim and explaining why they're separated from their employer. So the separation has to be known, and they have to reopen their claim, give us their reason for separation. As long as there's no issues with the reason for separation, they'll be able to use that way. So I hope that speaks to what it is that you're hearing or saying. If not, if you provide more information, we'll be able to get back to you.
Okay, next, Michael Gorsinger from CBS 21 asks, Congress is considering a new stimulus package that would bump the percentage of unemployment compensation payments to 70%. How would that work? And would the Fed pick up the tab for the difference in PA payments?
That's an excellent question. We assume that they would, but they are providing a lot of dollars under the Federal CARES Act. But right now, we don't know where this conversation in Washington is going to land. We do know that depending on where it lands, it could be a relatively simple thing for us if, for example, it's decided to just continue the $600 payments. That wouldn't take very much time at all for our system, since it's already set up to do that. If it's still a flat rate, but the number changes, that would take a little more time, but it would still be something that could be done in a reasonable period of time. If, however, that changes to a percentage or some kind of means test to determine the amount of dollars that an individual would receive, remember, we've received almost 3 million, maybe over 3 million by now, claims. And in order to follow the letter of the law, again, depending on what it says, we may have to review all of those claims individually. It could take months for us to make changes in the system and to go through that number of claims. We have shared that with Congress, members of our delegation in Pennsylvania, the governor, and our agency has done that. We have shared it through our connections to groups like the National Governors Association and NASWA, the National Association of State Workforce Agencies. So we are very hopeful that those benefits will be extended, but we are watching very carefully to see what impact that would have on our system, and therefore how quickly or how long it will take us to upgrade our systems and change our systems, modify our systems to make sure that we can do what is expected under whatever legislation is passed.
Okay, we have a similar question on the same subject. Margaret Krause from 90.5 WESA asks, if Congress should approve a renewal for PUA, how quickly would the state be able to amend its system and get those payments out the door again? And what work would be required of the UC office?
Again, it depends on what happens, what the specifics are. The most recent proposal I've seen from Republican Party in Washington is a flat rate of $200 for a certain period of time. I think it was 2 months, and then it would change to a percentage. That would take some time, particularly, I don't know, depending on the specifics, if we could get to a position in our system where we would be ready in 2 months to start doing all the work technologically and manually that would be involved in reviewing those claims to get them to 70%. It's something that we hope it's a flat rate. If it does change, we will, as we responded initially to the pandemic, we will do what we need to do. But the time required is really going to depend on what the final legislation looks like.
I also want to add, the question was about PUA, but it's not the PUA program that is at issue. So hopefully Margaret meant FPUC, which is the one ending now. PUA, of course, is the separate program that is authorized through the end of December. So it is FPUC. I just want to clarify for everyone, and also take the opportunity to remind everyone that when any new federal legislation comes through, we also need the federal guidance before we can start making any type of changes. So the law is usually passed, signed, enacted, and then we have to wait for the U.S. Department of Labor to send a unemployment insurance program letter to us in order for us to begin the changes and analyze what's needed.
Thank you, Susan.
Isaac Pettick from Erie News Now asks, if someone was just denied regular UC and opens a PUA claim, how can they claim back weeks now? Some individuals have been telling us that when they open a PUA claim, they are told that they cannot claim any back weeks that they did not work.
We're working on our messaging right now about that for our website. So 2 different things have happened. For starters, the automatic backdating of claims for PUA has stopped. So it's not an automatic thing. Certainly someone will be eligible if they've been on unemployment claiming regular unemployment and then they end up being denied. We already have those claims for benefits and we'll be able to go back and pay them. So it's not an eligibility question. There's no reason they would be denied. We just have to move those weeks over. But we do, I believe we will need individuals to just send us an email and let us know that they are interested in claiming those back weeks. So we will have something further on our website about it. The system itself has the functionality to have a backdate request on the dashboard. And some of you who've been with us all these months may have remembered that link was creating a lot of confusion when people couldn't file for back weeks that they wanted to file for, and it was creating chaos. So we deactivated the link. It also didn't quite work properly. So we're still hoping to someday get that link back on the dashboard, but we have to make sure it's working properly. That'll make it just a little bit easier for individuals to request their backdating. But for right now, I think what we'll do is we're going to have them just send an email to the PUA account, and then someone will be able to check their unemployment claim in our mainframe system, see that they filed for their back weeks, and then just be able to pay them on the PUA claim.
WTAE's Paul Van Alsto asks, what should a claimant do if a company recruits them to file a claim, but requires them to pay the company a portion of the benefits? Is that legal?
That is not legal, and we have had some pointed out to us, and we usually just turn those over to authorities, so they will be able to deal with it as required.
Okay, it looks like we are headed into our second round of questions. So I encourage anyone that has any additional questions today to please submit them now. Again, using the blue chat feature at the bottom of your screen. Please include your name along with your media outlet. Harry Harrison from NBC 10 asks, and this is a follow-up to his earlier question, PUA claimant filed for 2 weeks with no problems. A subsequent week showed a message stating that they were full-time earnings when there were none. So Susan, does that give you any additional information that you need for this, or do we need Harry to submit this via email to the press office and we'll follow up?
Yeah, I think it would be better if Harry submits it by email, because that's not some, that's not like an across the board problem I've heard of. It sounds like something that may be specific to that person.
All right, excellent. And again, for any follow-up questions that we're not able to answer during the course of the call, please submit them to dlipress@pa.gov, and we will respond to you shortly. Next, we have Kristen Johansson from KYW News Radio. If some people are still having issues getting through to UC and haven't gotten all their money, plus the $600 extra, will they still be able to get, a question just came in, will they still be able to get all of the $600 extra payment for back weeks?
Yes, they will be made whole. Susan, if you want to elaborate on that.
It is tied to the claim week. So whenever the claim week is paid, that's when the extra $600 is paid. So even if it's months from now, even if it's say we denied them and it goes to a referee hearing and it goes to a board hearing and it's months or even a year down the road, as long as we pay that claim week, that's July 25th or earlier back through April 4th, then the $600 is still paid.
Okay, and next we have a question from Michaela Drapak with ABC 27. Does the department have any plans to hire more staff?
We are constantly evaluating our system and our ability to hire more staff. We are working with the governor's office. We are working with outside vendors. We are just continuing to evaluate. We are bringing on more staff this week. We mentioned last week that we were training interviewers who were Spanish speaking, and they will be finishing that training and will be going online this week. So we have more than doubled our staff. We are looking to expand that even further. And again, depending on where the additional $600, extending the $600, no matter where that lands, we may need more staff in order to get that done. So we are constantly looking at what we can do to expand our numbers.
The Tribune Review's Joe Napsha asks, what is the status of the state's Unemployment Compensation Trust Fund? Does the state need to borrow money from the federal government?
We actually began that process at the end of last week. We knew, but based on projections from when the pandemic initially started, and as we got into a little bit, it was clear that probably by September we were going to need to borrow from the trust fund, and these are interest-free loans from the federal government. It's more like a line of credit. So whatever we use was, we don't owe it automatically unless it's used, whatever we borrow. So we began that process at the end of July instead of the end of August. So early September. So we will be borrowing from the federal government to supplement the trust fund. And again, I've said this before. If the pandemic hadn't occurred, obviously it has, but if it hadn't, our trust fund would have been solvent sometime in late spring, early summer, which means that we would have been about 250% or more beyond our liabilities, and 250% more in assets beyond our liabilities. So we were well on our way to doing that. We were ahead of schedule in doing that, and clearly the pandemic has run that behind, so we will be borrowing.
Margaret Krause from 90.5 WESA asks, you have touched on how tough it could be to amend the PA system to distribute FPUC payments. Can you describe in more detail what goes into retrofitting the state system? You mentioned technological and manual. What does that look like? And she's just looking for more detail.
I don't know, Susan, if you can provide more detail, but as you heard Susan talk about, and I alluded to as well, it's a very complicated system. Just the laws are complicated. And if we have 19 different paths that an application could take, by increasing the complexity of the system, you're increasing the complexity of the system, which means that, yes, we would have to make technological changes. What exactly they would be and how long really is a function of what that law looks like. Susan, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, that describes it. We won't know any of that until the federal government tells us what we're required to do. So once they give us our requirements, we can turn around and then give our IT staff the requirements, give our customer service staff the requirements. So we don't know until we know the requirements.
Okay, and again, if there is any additional questions, we please ask you to submit them at this time. Isaac Pettick from Erie News Now asks, do you have an update on how many claimants were switched from PUA to regular UC? And if someone is switched to regular UC, what should their next steps be besides file a new claim?
I'm thinking Isaac's probably asking about the quarter change claims, and if that's true, that's not a figure that we track. We go claim by claim, and if someone is eligible for, or it seems they could be eligible for regular UC, the staff member contacts that person and has them file a regular UC claim, and then they just continue filing on the UC claim and receiving payment as long as there's no other eligibility issue. So we don't know, a head count of those. We don't track those.
And next, Harry Hairston from NBC 10 Philadelphia asks, how soon could the remaining 7% of claimants who have yet to receive benefits, how soon could they expect to see their benefits?
So the individuals in the remaining 7% are actually not all potentially eligible for benefits. A lot of them will be denied. A lot of them will be approved. What we've also found is that in that amount of people are also the individuals who are working and earning too much to qualify for a benefit. We're trying internally to find out if there's a way that we can identify who those are and remove them from the stat, because those are individuals that are not left for us to process. There's nothing else to be processed. They're simply week to week earning too much. They're reporting their earnings correctly. And they are not due any benefits. Now, a lot of those individuals don't realize it, and that's what we're finding as we're, seeing more people surface and question. They filed their claim in March. They haven't heard anything. What's going on? A lot of times, it's individuals who have what we call excessive earnings. So they're earning too much each week to qualify for a benefit. And in those cases, there's no determination that goes out to them. There's nothing that says you're ineligible. Because really they're not ineligible for benefits. It's just they're not unemployed for the week. So we've been having quite a few of those surface as well. And the individual the information about working part-time is in the claimant handbook that everyone receives when they file a claim. I just checked it before this. It's on page 12, and it talks about working part-time and how we deduct earnings when you report earnings to us, and at what level you won't have a benefit anymore. So in that 7% of individuals are the individuals who have been working and earning too much, but those are not unprocessed claims. There's nothing further for the department to process for those. They just aren't eligible for benefits for those weeks. If they do become less employed than they are now, making less than they are, working fewer hours, they would be able to reopen their claim and claim benefits and could potentially be eligible. But it is all based on the math. It depends on what their weekly benefit rate is and how much they're reporting in their earnings. So we're trying to see if there's a way to come out with those, because they are difficult to count because there's no determination that gets issued in those circumstances.
The Allentown Morning Call's Peter Hall asks, can you provide more detail about the status of the UC Trust Fund or direct us to resources online?
I don't have any figures available right now. And I'm not even sure I should know this. And Susan, I don't know if you know if that information is available online. We certainly can get it to the reporter.
Right. I don't know of anything on our website, and I'm not totally sure about the federal website. You could probably, I mean, just search DOL's website and see if there is anything, but there might not be.
Okay, and that appears to be all of our questions for today. Jerry, Susan, do either of you have any final comments or thoughts for our participants?
Just thank you again for being a part of this and helping get the word out. We are, as you are, and as I'm sure our citizens of Pennsylvania who are collecting unemployment are very anxious to see what happens with the extension of the benefits, and we're hoping that that lands in a good place for all of us.
And that's all the time we have for today. Please email our communications office at dlipress@pa.gov with any additional questions. Thank you so much for joining us, and stay well.
Thank you.
Thank you.